John, tell me about your 1975 Hibbing team.
Good. Weren't really, it was a possibility to get to the state tournament, but Duluth East was very good. Rockne Johnson was their star, and they had, that was the team kind of to beat up there in 75. And they were ranked 1 or 2 in the state pretty much all year long. And then we went to Duluth East and played them, and we beat them. And it was kind of unusual because Rockne Johnson was about 6'5", 6'6", and very skilled and could score inside, outside, but his whole game was kind of getting the ball going to the hoop and making shots inside. And Kevin McHale blocked probably his first 4 or 5 shots, and all of a sudden, boom, the life went out of their team, and all of a sudden they were counting on, Rockne to score, and Rock couldn't score, and so we ended up beating them, and then beat them again in the section finals to go to state. And so it was kind of that same thing where they'd throw the ball into Rock, and Rock couldn't get a shot off against McHale. His arms were very long and could block everybody's shots. So that we unexpectedly we got to state and ran into Little Falls was our first game, and played Frank Wachlorowitz was the star of their team. And we got down to the last minutes of the game, and we're down by 2, and we had forced a jump ball underneath our own basket with about seconds left, maybe 3 or 4 seconds. And I was jumping against one of their guards, and so I had about a 6-inch height advantage, and tipped the ball, and the play was to go to Kevin, and instead of tipping it to him, I thought, I said, go back, and I tipped it over his head. He came forward, and the ball went over his head out of bounds. So we ended up losing by 2, and then played in the consolation round. The next morning, you had to get up and play it was awful. It was, we finished at, 9 o'clock at night and had to get up and play at 8 the next morning. And
Was that at the Civic Center?
Yes, it was fun. Everything was great until you had to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning to play. But so we played Highland Park the next day and beat them pretty soundly, and then got to the consolation finals and played Jefferson on the finals. And luckily, if you were the AA team got to sleep in, so we didn't play till like 10 the next day on that last one. But Jefferson kind of took it to us. They beat us pretty good in 75, and but it was fun. Hibbing hadn't been to the state tournament in since like 57, so almost 20 some years that the team had got. So that was kind of a victory in itself, and we had everybody back. The team was mostly all juniors. Our one senior was a kind of a point guard that kind of was just a fill-in and just be the 5th guy on the floor, and we had some younger guys coming up that could fill in, and so we were expected to be good the next year, and we were.
Who was your starting 5 in 75? Who's your starting 5 in 75?
Well, it was myself and Kevin McHale, and then Monty Mitchell was a senior, and then we had Steve Knezovich and Scott Nearing. And Scott Nearing was a junior, Steve Knezovich was a junior, myself junior, and Kevin was a junior. And then we brought 2 sophomores, Dave Sismel and Skip Bronicky, off the bench. So we only had really one senior that played, and so that's the one guy we lost. But and so we basically brought the whole team back the next year in 76. But 75 was fun. It was enjoyable, and we all got to go down to the state tournament and play at the Civic Center.
Plus, it puts that motivation to get back out there,
Yeah, to do that. You now have a target a little bit on your back when you're going and playing in conference stuff. We still had to play Chisholm, and we played some of the teams. I know that at the beginning of 76, we had Coach Addington would always say, we need to set goals. And the goal for the year was we're going to go undefeated. Why shouldn't we? We should go undefeated. Well, we lost to Superior, Coach Evans. Superior had a couple good guys, and so we played at Superior and lost by like 10 or 12. And then we came, I think, to Little Falls and lost there in the middle of the season. And so we had 2 losses, I think, going into the state tournament, but are going into the sections and stuff, and then didn't really have too much trouble winning, through our section. There weren't, Chisholm was way down. They were actually in Class A, of course, but there weren't a lot of Double A. The bigger schools, the Duluth East and the Bemidji's and the bigger schools weren't that good in 76. So we didn't have a lot of trouble getting through the sections to the state tournament in 76.
So how many games did you lose in 75?
Oh, probably 4 or 5. We lost twice to Chisholm. We lost to Little Falls, came to our place and just pounded us by like 25. I think we probably lost 4 or 5 games in 75.
And just
then
two
a couple
the next
maybe
year.
in 76, yeah.
What do you remember do you remember any details from that 75 game against Jefferson and the consolation?
Just that we were tired, and I wouldn't say I was tired. It was, everybody, the game kind of got out of hand. They were physical, much more physical than we were. They were bigger than us and a lot more physical. If we could handle somebody's pressure, I think they pressed us pretty much. If we could handle pressure and get the ball up the court and score, or at least not turn it over and give them points going the other way, we were good. But I don't think we did a good job handling the ball. And then all of a sudden you get down by 8 or 10, and it's an emotional thing in the state tournament when the tide turns and all of a sudden momentum goes the other way. You can get a run of 10, 12 points against you, and all of a sudden the games are not short, but I mean you can have it over in a hurry if you fall behind by a handful.
Jack has said that his 75 team was probably his best overall team ever.
They lost. You lost on the last second shot to Robbinsdale. It was a back and forth game, a 2-point or a close game. Tom Fix and somebody else but that was a close. Yeah,
Starner was a kid.
Was a back and forth game, and I said it was one of those two teams was going to be the far better than us, either one. And I just remember that Jefferson had lost just by a point or two on a kind of a last second shot.
I actually had heard some few details about that game probably when I was in high school all those years ago, and I'd never seen the game. I got the game from Tom Kershell, who was one of the starting forwards in 75 for Jefferson. He had the game. I watched it, and I've told all these guys, Jefferson got screwed. I mean, but the referees, seriously, one of the refs made a call. You get 10 seconds at the free throw line once you get the ball in your hand, you get 10 seconds to shoot it. Yeah. Have you ever seen that called before? No. That was called in that game in the fourth quarter. Is that right, Jeff? Late in that ball game, the ref made that call.
Oh, no.
And so I watched the game, and it was just some horrendous calls. I mean, just blatant. Anyways, different story. So going into the state tournament in 76, you guys have been there the year before. How you're feeling? How did those games go up?
We got through the sections, and we were supposed to play. Minneapolis Central was like the #1 ranked team in the state, and they were going to be. They had all the sections figured out. It wasn't now. They didn't seed anybody. It's just like Section 7 played Section 4, whatever. So if we won, we were playing. More than likely, it was going to be Minneapolis Central, who was ranked #1. Well, Minneapolis North beat them in the section finals in a big upset where North wasn't rated. And so we ended up playing North our first game and again beat them pretty handily. They had one guard that was a shooter and he couldn't make anything, so that made it quite easy for us to move forward. They were smaller and pressed us, but we handled their press and scored off it, and so it was a pretty quick game. And then in the semis we had to play Little Falls again. And
they beat you that year.
They beat us earlier, and then we played them in the semis and ended up beating them by 2. I think it might have been the same score, but close game. And this time we pulled it out. We won by 2 or 3, and then got to the finals against Jefferson. But it was a fun year, and I had broken my hand in January, so I didn't play games from like January, February, and I came back first part of March. They taped my hand up and I could play kind of left-handed. I couldn't, I just had a kind of rubberized cast thing on my right hand. So I was not 100%.
So what are your memories of the state championship game in 76?
We got out to good start, a good lead, and the turning point, I think it was probably in the third quarter. We had a lead at halftime, maybe a dozen, maybe 10, and started the third quarter. And again, we knew that if somebody threw the ball inside, that Kevin would usually block it. And all of a sudden, the ball went into Steve Lingenfelter, and he kind of spun and threw up a hook shot, left-handed hook shot, over Kevin's outstretched arm, and it went in. And so about 2 or 3 of those happened, and all of a sudden we started looking, they're no longer, the paint is no longer owned by Kevin McHale. It was Steve Lingenfelter was making hook shots left and right. And so we started, having trouble getting the ball over half court. And it was the third into the fourth quarter, there was a big momentum swing where we went from maybe 10 up to 10 down, and then struggled coming back in the fourth and lost by, I think it was like a 10-point game at the end. But that was what I remember most is if that Kevin McHale picture in Boston Celtics and Magic Johnson shooting the hook shot in the lane to win the game. That was, I see Steve Lingenfelter shooting that same hook shot in the middle of the lane to win the game, or to at least turn the tide.
Yeah, it was Jefferson beat you guys 60-51, and there was a big swing in the second half, though, huh?
Yeah, I remember that we were ahead in the first half. I don't know if it was 10 points, but I want to say it was a 20-point swing in the second half, that we went from 10 up to 10 down.
That's pretty significant for high school basketball then, and no three-point shooting.
Yeah, no three-point shooting. We turned it over. Jefferson pressed us, and we turned it over, and like I said, not only did they score with Lingenfelter in the middle, but they would get turnover baskets. You'd cough it up on the press, and they'd get baskets going the other way. So, but it was fun at a point, but it wasn't the way we wanted it to end. Any
other memories that you have from besides Steve inside?
Not really. I mean, I think there was a good crowd. It was fun. There was lots of people back. I mean, it wasn't a sellout, but the atmosphere was great in the Civic Center for the AA game, and there weren't 5 classes. There was just, A and AA, and the A game was in the afternoon, and then the AA game was the only one at night, that last game of the night. So it was fun. It was a fun game, and just didn't go our way.
Did you ever foresee Kevin having this type of career, Hall of Fame career? No. I mean, what?
No, not at all. I mean, I tell the story. So when we were juniors, we were playing Virginia, and Virginia had a guy named Pat Foshee. And Pat Foshee was kind of the first northern Minnesota guy that drew a lot of national acclaim. And so he got recruited to go to Kentucky. And at that time, Kentucky was big time. That was big. That was big basketball. And so he was going to go to Kentucky. And so we were playing Virginia he was a year older, and so we were juniors, Pat Foshee was a senior. And the game was at Hibbing, and we ended up beating them in overtime. Game went to overtime. We beat them by 1 or 2, but Pat Foshee had, one of those deals where he had 50 and their whole team together had another 10 points, and we beat them, 61-60, something like that. And so we were sitting there, the game was kind of running out, and we were sitting on the bench, and so the game's over, not in doubt, but we're sitting, Kevin and I are sitting there, and our assistant coach, who had been there a long, long time, came and sat next to us, and he kind of leaned in, and he goes, you know what? We just kind of looked at him, what's going on? He goes, there's an NBA player that was on this court tonight. Just you guys remember that. And he was pointing at Pat Foshee. He just had it wrong, that which NBA player was on the court.
He had it right, but wrong.
He did. So he said, there's an NBA player on this court tonight. You guys just remember that. And I said, okay.